Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Lauren Meeker here, General and Artistic Director of Opera San Antonio, and we are back today with our bi-weekly interview series called Beyond the Production. And joining me, as always, is the lovely and talented Francesco Miliotto. Hi, Francesco.
Hi, Lauren. How are you?
I am doing very well. For anybody who's joining us today for the first time, Francesco is Opera San Antonio's music director and my constant partner in crime. And we are absolutely thrilled today to have an amazing and stunning guest with us. I'm going to add him into our stream right now. Hello, David.
Hello. Hi, guys.
So for our viewers watching today, both in real time and for those who may be joining after the broadcast, David Lomeli, I think, is an amazing and stunning human being who I've had the pleasure of working with at the Dallas Opera a few years back. David, I think you've been with Dallas Opera since 2014 when you originally came in as an artistic coordinator. Is that true?
Yes. I joined July 2014, and I am now, I just had my anniversary of 6 years.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, yeah.
So you have such a fabulous history and so many different experiences within a variety of facets of the opera industry that we will get into all of those nitty-gritty details in a moment. But for everybody who's watching us, David is now still working, obviously, at TDO, the director of artistic administration, and you're also newly named the casting director of Bavarian State Opera, which I think will be effective in the coming year. So I want to get our audience caught up on all of those great and amazing things. But someone here knows you even better than I do, and that someone is Francesco.
Francesco, we got to be careful.
Kicked off with David, but how did the two of you meet?
We met in Dallas on Moby Dick. So,
Right.
you know, I was brought in. I met Emmanuel Viome in Santa Fe, and we were working on Fanciulla del West, and Emmanuel and I hit it off really, really well. And I guess there was a spot. I don't know what happened, and I'm never going to ask, but there was a spot for me to do Moby Dick and to come down and assist. And I met, David and Meredith and Laura, like everyone. The whole TDO team was fantastic. And of course, I love working with Emmanuel and David. And, David and I have known each other for all those years. And we're like brothers. We talk all the time about everything, life, sports. Yeah. We were just talking about sports when we got on with Lauren before the show. But, this guy's like a brother to me. And it's been a few years now. But I know you very well. But our audience needs to learn how David Lomeli became Il Lomeli. So, you got to take us through and you know that there's one story that I want to hear and one section that I need from the yes. So, but if you could take us at least through the beginning.
Yeah.
Dal cantante al direttore jefe.
Well, it's been a very, like while I was living it, sometimes it was incredible and sometimes incredibly painful. But looking at passing it out, I'm just incredibly blessed, and lucky to have experienced some of the things that I have experienced. So I still be a big believer that thank you, whoever it is that is moving the joystick, right? It's thank you for a lot of these things, incredible blessings. Quickly, I was born in Mexico City. Mid-class family. My grandma was an incredible singer. My mom was an incredible singer. So I grew up with music a lot. My dad is musical, but he was, he got a work in the Pont Nemours at the time, big transnational in Mexico. We always sang. We had a big family. My mom is the last one of 11, so I had a big cousins of like almost 50 cousins. But once when I was 12, my parents moved us to Monterrey in the north. So in Mexico, I'm kind of like from both sides. There's big rivalry between both cities. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes like people want to, like when I won Operalia, it was really funny because people were like, yeah, the guy from Mexico City won, and the people in Monterrey is like, no, he's from Monterrey.
Yes.
I love it.
You know, so but Monterrey is where I form myself more like a person artistically, definitely, and I got some of the biggest support to start this career. You know, my parents were very supportive of everything that I wanted to do musically. I was the kid that wanted to be a singer all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I was very tall and quite chubby for Mexico. You know, like in Mexico, I was quite bigger than anybody else. So it kind of didn't really work with. At that time, there was no, there was no Adele, or there was no people that were a little overweight. Everybody had to look like Luis Miguel or Ricky Martin or something.
Ricky Martin, yes.
So certainly, like my long hair didn't work out. So I started experimenting and trying to find my way. I wanted to be an artist. So I entered a very bizarre university. It's an incredible university, Tec de Monterrey in Latin America. A lot of people go. It's a school that has a team that has clothing by Reebok, or we have a theater that has a series of people that and I eventually play there. I play their theater with Gustavo Dudamel and the full Simón Bolívar playing with me. There's a YouTube of Dudamel and I singing Nessun Dorma.
Wow.
Yeah, so there was this type of thing, but they didn't have a music degree. So all the orchestra were doctors, administrators, people that were doing something else, and it was their extracurricular degree. And for me, they pay my scholarship. They pay my engineering degree if I sang. Weird, right? I thought that was something that happened, and nothing happened. I haven't seen it anywhere in the world.
and you never will again.
Yeah. So, and things of the destiny, the guy that was taking over the cultural department, he was an ex-tenor, professional opera tenor, and he wanted to build an opera company with the students. And I'm his first member of that company.
Wow.
That is when I started seeing okay. Later I went to study in Barcelona in a scholarship deal that I had to finish my engineer degree, but I also had to do something musical. So I went to Liceo de Barcelona in the mornings, and in the nights I would go to the Politécnica de Catalunya to finish my computer science engineering degree. That sounds so bizarre to have here. But I met Montserrat Caballero and Jose Carreras there.
Yep.
And they were like, you should sing, right? And so we, that was something that I was like, well, if these guys are saying that I should sing, I sang in a little master class. Before that, I had a little bit of a taste because I forgot. Like when I was 18, I met Luciano Pavarotti too. And I sang Bohème a little bit with him. The big break came when a Mexican pianist was in Monterrey. He was a big coach in Manhattan School of Music at the time. And for X, Y, and Z, we met. I sang. He's like, you have to come up to this pay to sing that I work with in the summers. I went and I worked with Mignon Dawn. I met her. She eventually introduced me to my teacher, Cesar Ulloa. And the rest is history, because that's when I am graduating my degrees, right? I at the time also I had a pop band.
Yes,
I was back.
Francesco's favorite part of your entire.
My favorite part of the whole history. Polytechnic, whatever, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You need to talk about the pop band.
Well, I graduated my engineering degree, and we won a competition of the school. The school has not only the biggest campus is in Monterrey, Mexico, but it has 33 campuses around the country.
Okay.
It's a really, unless that you see it, like you believe it, it's a really, really insane institution. It's a really fun place to go to college, and they have this original song competition. You have to compete. You have to be a student,
Okay.
to be part of it. But you're competing with all the campuses. So you're competing with, it's a national competition. And we were the first people, our band, we were another two guys. And we did a trio, a kind of harmonic type of, our Mexican version of Boys to Men type of thing.
I love it.
Oh my God.
And we won all the prizes, composition, everything. And so we got signed. We did a lot of things, like we worked really hard, and but eventually didn't work out. I met Placido in one of our breaks.
Wow.
And Placido, I crashed an audition actually. Cesar, I was working in the breaks with Cesar too.
That's great.
That's the story.
And Cesar tells me like, hey, there's going to be auditions for Placido on February 6, 2006. Can you make it? And I was like, well, so I asked for money, I pay my ticket. I stay with a friend. I go in and I realize that I'm not invited. That there's another 6 Mexican singers that are going to sing, but I'm not in the list.
Oops.
So Cesar sneaks me in, and they hear the 6 people. And then Cesar asks, can you just hear this guy more?
So you got in despite not being on the list.
Yeah.
Great.
This is how it works all the time.
Totally.
And so I sang Que Llele a Menina, and Rolando Villazón and Ana Tropico were there in the room because Placido just conducted them that night in Rigoletto.
Wow.
And he comes back and he's like, where are you? Who are you? Like, you're really good. Like, he gave me a card of his son and called Pepe tomorrow. So I called Pepe and he said, my dad wants you to be to fly to the finals of LA, the new Young Artist Program. He's opening there. Can you make it in April? And I was like, yes. And we would like to also give you a wild card to compete in Operalia.
Wow.
At that time, I haven't really competed on anything operatic-wise.
Wow.
So I kind of inscribed myself into a small competition in Mexico, in Merida, that was only for tenors. Weird.
Okay.
I won it. It was really fun. And that was my experience. The only previous experience was when I was still in the college and I tried to go to the national singing competition. I made it to the semis, but that year somebody called Javier Camarena won. So
somebody called.
Yeah. I was super green too, so I didn't do very well. But those were my 2 kind of previous experiences, like before going to the World Cup of Singing. And I had the incredible luck and life-changing experience to be the first one to win all the prizes, and life changed. I wanted to have a very beautiful career. I was 2 years in the program with Placido. I debuted with Placido in my leads. I did 200 plus bohemes all over the world. I sang a lot, but then 2012, I was recently engaged in January. I was in the cover of Opera News to make my debut in Houston Grand Opera, and I started becoming Violetta. I was starting Coughing Blood. So I got fired. 6 years after winning the World Cup. By that time, it was so meteorical. I sang the Verdi Requiem for the inauguration of Duramel's tenure music director. I recorded the Berlin Philharmonic. Like, I left almost $500,000 of contracts when I quit.
Wow.
It was a really spectacular, fast rise. And it was very frustrating because I was not having any vocal issues. I had incredible problems in my stomach, cysts, and everything it's complicated. It's a big thing. That eventually took me in and out of gigs. I would cancel some of them I sang, but I was not on my best because I was in pain. I had a few surgeries. It didn't work out. And I was 2 years, and my brand was very hurt because I was canceling a lot, or I was getting fired. Like, people, especially big companies, you cancel one show, and people are like, what happened?
Yep.
Yeah.
You cancel 2. and they're hiring a cover. You cancel 3 and they're buying you out.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know that. It was very, very, very hard. And I had to learn to not harden myself, but understand that it was a business.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
At the end of the day, they needed to take care of the product, and they didn't care, and the show must go on.
It wasn't about you necessarily from their perspective.
Yeah. So, but it was not easy. It was not easy to understand places where I had very good successes, or people that were very, very kind to me when I was singing great, and they were like, "What do you want to sing? And what do you want?" And and it was dramatic. In 2011, I made my debut in New York, and like the next day, the New York Times gave me the review of my mother. Like, and then the New Yorker, it was my father, and it was just like somebody that was my best friend was writing reviews.
Wow.
And then that summer I did Bohème in Santa Fe, and the Washington Post says like the discovery of the summer was this dude. So the career were happening, and then suddenly the same companies where I had those successes, they were buying you out.
Yep.
And that's when I said, I cannot blame them. And that's why also I think that a lot of the companies, when, like where I ended in Dallas Opera, it was actually a company that I didn't sing with. And I really didn't think that I was a good colleague, that I was not a terrible person. I definitely, but definitely there's an unease when you fire somebody.
Sure, of course.
Right? There's hurt, there's difficulty, and also a lot of people never thought that I was for real when I quit singing. A lot of the people that I went to, and I had sit downs with, if you check where I sang, I'll probably call everybody.
Yeah.
And the 90% of the people were like, well, you know what? We are going to pass because you don't have business experience. And I was like, okay. You have hired most of the time retired singers that never went to school, but I do have real education, and I speak 5 languages, and I won operatic. Maybe this helps, right? But no, that didn't work out. And until Dallas offered me a job at an entry-level position, booking travel, and I was like, oh my God, like here we go. Like it was a very difficult challenge. Actually yesterday was the person that welcomed me to that interview just left the company yesterday. And we got our Zoom after an incredible career, and our dear Virginia Mudge. And I told her a little teary, said, I remember getting into that interview. It was my second interview. I knew that I could sell it, but I was basically saying goodbye to my dreams.
Yeah.
So, but you were so positive and welcoming and made me feel that I was doing the right decision. And it was.
So, Debbie, could you talk a little bit about 2 things for me? One, I'm not sure all of our viewers know what Operalia is. So there's a way you could talk about what that competition is, because for many artists, I know it's a life-changing experience. And then 2, what you're tripping into, which I think is very personal for every artist, but is especially applicable in COVID when the world seems to be changing moment to moment, is that transition territory that we're just starting to get into. And that is going to be unique to every artist and certainly to you, but I think there's going to be language in there that's maybe helpful, especially for some of our younger viewers to hear as well.
Yeah.
Operalia first.
Well, quickly, Operalia is a competition that was founded, I think, 26 years ago by Placido Domingo, or probably 30, because I think he started in the 1990s, right? And the beautiful thing, or the idea of that competition, it was like the prizes are significant, like the first prize is like $30,000,
right?
And so on. There's so many prizes, and the lightest prize is $10,000. Then normally that's the norm of the bigger competition in the world, right? The 10,000, that's normally the
right.
But it has the particularity that all the judges are it changes every year, but it's about 10 to 15 people to sometimes 18 people that are in the jury, but all of them are decision makers. So there's no singers, there's no agents, there's no conductors, there's intendants and casting directors, no agents, nothing. So If you win, that means that the tastemakers of the business, and they bring the biggest one, like the moment that you are in that semifinal or quarter round, you're doing an audition for La Scala, the Met,
Right.
Vienna, Munich, you name it.
Everywhere.
Right?
Royal Opera House, everyone.
So when you win that, it really boosts your career tremendously because it puts a stamp of approval that you were ready to sing on clutch.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
2 is worldwide. There's no visa restrictions. They pay for you to go. They pay your plane. If you come from Azerbaijan or China, they fly you.
Mm-hmm.
They give you a very handsome. They pay you to compete. They
Wow.
give you They pay
Oh, I
your.
didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, they pay your meals. They pay your a significant. It's like €1,000 or something like that. But when you're a struggling artist, that's
Yeah.
I remember that when I went, I pocketed the money to go and see my girlfriend at the time that was in Barcelona because I won in Valencia. So I arrived like with 4 days to kind of deal with jet lag, and so I went to take a train, and it was with the money of that. So it was,
Mm-hmm.
and to be honest, when I was doing it, now it's different. I was not eligible to do most of the U.S. competitions.
Why?
Because I'm Mexican.
Oh, so okay, got it.
So I could not compete in the meta auditions.
Right.
That's insane.
Oh, we will get into
rolling up his sleeves.
we will get into
Here we go.
The nightmares that has been to be a foreign artist in both sides of the table. For the past, in next April is 15 years since I immigrated to the United States. It has so many pluses, but just to be able to talk to you right now because of our relationships, I am like almost $150,000 in the toilet on visas.
Wow, that is incredible. I don't think people have any scope that that's part of what happens behind the scenes.
Not only that, like, if you really think about that, the famous article 14 exists in AGMA. And I don't know if I can make the parenthesis a little bit, but I think that this is very important for everybody that wants to get education. The American Guild of Musical Arts, that is the main union of singers, directors, conductors, stage managers, dancers. They have an article that says that only the leading roles categories can be played by foreign artists. So only if you have a blue passport or a green card, you can sing those roles. But what I don't know, a lot of people are not very familiar. But if you go to AGMA Schedule C, you see the categories of each role for every opera that is in the repertoire.
Yep.
So right now, if you're a bass and a bass baritone, you cannot sing Shonard and Colleen in an American theater that is of certain budget level that is associated with AGMA, because that has to be that way. Even though, as we know, one of the most practiced things to say in the business in the United States to emerging talent above all is like, you should go to Europe, go to Germany, get it right. But they can actually get it
over there, yeah.
But there's no reciprocity, and the same happen in competition. So that is also very hard. The part that I am the very first Hispanic in a casting position in 140 years of opera in the United States.
We maybe have some work to do, David.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're so lucky with the support system that you have with your family, with Sarah and David, and your family that's very supportive, which not every artist has a supportive family that, like I'm very lucky that mine was also supportive. But I think that would definitely would have helped in the transition in going from the end of singing. And for me, I have to say that I think all of the experiences and the fact that you are a singer, an artist, and I mean, that's a different perspective and something else that you bring to the table when you switch sides and now you're on the other side of the table and you're a buyer. Like that is something that I think is so valuable in this business. Not that any background is great, but this particular background, you have such a connection and I've seen it and I've felt it with artists and people. You understand both sides of that fourth wall, and I think that makes it so valuable. So if you can talk a little bit of getting into the transition through Dallas and where you are, and I know you've done tons of things like that, but I think it's important for people to know and what you bring as a singer to that side of the table.
Yeah, I'm fascinating enough. We're one of the few entertainment professions or industries that, let's say, the star players or the marquee names don't transform themselves into the executive part of that entertainment business at some point.
Yeah.
If you're an incredible singer, most probably you're going to teach. If you're an incredible famous singer, you probably maybe get now an artistic consultant thing that is not regularly paid. There's very few of those that you get paid. Or maybe you run a young artist program.
Yeah.
And that's the extent, like if you want to be a career professional into general directors or administration of some kind, there is more ease on every other aspect. Like you're kind of like prized if you quit singing earlier, right?
Yep.
In order to become a professional. And the opera in the United States is full of trained performers that didn't do the career, right?
Right.
So the problem is, systematically, what I found a lot of this is that because you're a singer, you can be like the basic things. The obvious is that you are more empathetic. Right? You don't get scared if a singer cancels. There's 1,000 out there. It's cold, but if someone cancel,
it's job. It's business.
Like getting so angry with somebody cancel, and I'm like,
it's fine.
Why would we force somebody to sing if they don't want to sing?
If they don't want to be there, yeah.
Yeah, like it's sometimes it's a nightmare because of visas and whatever, but I think it always a cancellation is an opportunity to discover someone. And for me, like I went on for cancellations of Villazón, Caleja, you name it, and I know that when I started getting sick, Fabiano and Brian Himmel got a lot of my work by Vera, so it's just the way that it works, right?
Yeah.
So that part of the empathetic or sometimes even tricks of the mind that you say, like I remember one day a certain tenor, a friend of us, that was going through a little difficult period in his life. And he would start a show and he would be very center of the pitch. And then the more it happened, he would tend to get really sharp. And then at some point, he would get a little flat. And so it was all over the place, but it was mostly emotional distress. So you as an administrator, sometimes in the heat of the moment, I could go and backstage and, Francesco, I rarely see the show from afar.
Yes.
Maybe one or two, but mostly I'm in the back. I do feel that even though I know that, and it took me a little bit to understand, because I still feel like one of the guys all the time. But at the end of the day, I started seeing that if I said something, suddenly the effect was a little more drastic.
Of course.
If I would give a negative no, the person would feel defeated.
Yep.
And if it was positive, I would get an agent asking me for 16 possibilities after that.
Right.
So I started to realize that I could affect also a little bit like the adjustment of the performance, just like a coach. Soccer, right, on basketball. You do adjustments on the fly if you see the strategy where it is, and you start administering nerves, fatigue, all those things that we don't pay attention in performance, right?
Or that other people that aren't like you wouldn't even have the sensitivity or the sensibility to even be able to detect.
So I, like especially I have a soft spot with tenors. I know a lot of their psychological struggles. And so, especially if there's a tenor in a little bit of some situation, I like to stay with them backstage and walk them and joke them. And, if they're flat, saying like, you know what, you're so sharp, you're pushing, can you just stop and relax? And normally that fixes it.
Yeah.
They're so afraid that they're flat, that they're singing flatter.
Yes.
Right? But I had to walk that path myself. And the problem
Not
is
a
that
lot of people can say that.
no.
And I don't mean get away with it, but not a lot of people can simply say that. And for someone like you, I mean, I say it to you sometimes. I'm like, you're David Lomeli, right? Like, I have to say that to some of the people. I'm like, and it's exactly right. I'm like, you're David Lomeli. You know who you are, right? There's way.
No, like I just thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate it. I wish to see a little more performers at their peak, exploring, managing, like maybe a less involved career in singing, but also arrive with energy,
Yes.
with wish to create, and not just manage, your next phase of life, right?
Right.
And we do make a difference. We have
Oh, yeah.
seen it in what we're doing for TDO Network, where the moment that we empower the creators, the public responded better than when we just plan and we force singers, directors, and everything to just do what 3-4 people that are not creators decide to do. Right. So I'm not saying that we have to change everything, but at least I just want to prove evidence that it works. Like the psychological aspect also of a singer, of you have to take risks. And sometimes administration in opera is the opposite of taking risks. Right?
Or not, David, because you're segueing into some interesting territory, which is if there's anything COVID has done in the opera world, it's forced us to move faster and re-strategize in ways that pre-March, I don't think any of us saw coming. Or if we did see it coming and we were making strides, we were talking a much longer timeline than we are now in order to have a really significant impact. And some of what I would love for you to talk about is what's been happening at Dallas Opera. And in particular, two things, David, what's happening with the Dallas Opera Network, which from my perspective is really the David brainchild, and how that work is then influencing what future programming both on and off stage might look like for your perspective.
Well, there's so many blessings, I have to say, of COVID and in so the devastation that it is, right? Like I have to acknowledge that too. But I think especially for our industry, we're so busy into like the business as usual attitude that we really never address systemic things that have us today to the brink of a massive transformation or extinction, at least in the United States, the way that it works, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I see like, and I don't know, like I think today we have to think that the whatever we do, it has the capability to be global like this. So when you think regional is very difficult. And right now the most common like situation or financial model of every opera company in the United States depends on a heavy hand of a donor, or let's say a feudal king, right? A feudal sir, to buy and pay the opera production. And then sometimes even ticket sales figures are irrelevant because there's not a lot of people attending, or the prices of producing opera are so high that even with a full theater, you're just maybe making a 30% on the expense, right? But that's the thing, is like we have been willing to go every year to our incredible, rich donor or chairman or whatever it is, our big donor of the city, and say, oh my God, I maxed my credit card, like, can you pay for it? And they do it because they love us. We're that incredible kid that they can show up art to their friends. But are we market reliable? No. Why every time that we see a classical opera piece quoted in general popular culture, it has to be the Queen of the Night or Nessun Dorma or Figaro? Right? Because they actually got venues that affected a lot of people to connect with that thing, but they have to have variability, right? At some point, when Traviata was featuring Pretty Woman, the albums of Traviata went up, right? Like people wanted to know.
Right.
So the same thing happens when we are in the media, right? So for years, I have seen the general industry, and I now monitor every company in the world about their engagement per week because Facebook allows us to do that. So today, for example, I went into Facebook, and just for these past 28 days, the TDO Network reached about 7 million people just that saw our content in the last month. And but what is fascinating is that, you know, we are spending way less money than the Royal Opera House or the Metropolitan Opera House or Paris pays for each content that they have, because they normally push, you know, live stream content that they buy. Right? And so, for example, this past week, and we are right now in a transition where next week we're debuting a lot of content. So we were a little lighter this week. I also was on vacation. But for example, in these past 7 days, the Royal Opera House has an incredible amount of engagement. It's like the mammoth of the world. Right?
Great. Yep.
But this past week, the Metropolitan Opera has 236,000 people engaged that they click, share, reacted to the content.
Right.
And in third place this week, we were at 120,000, the Dallas Opera.
That's phenomenal.
We can have several weeks where we're above the Met. We normally post the same amount of similar amount of content or posts. So that's another thing is, if you really want to have a really good social media, you have to post, and you have to be very disciplined. The major players in social media in the world, but at least in opera, the Royal Opera House the past week posted 20 times, the Met 26, the Dallas Opera 25.
That's incredible.
But then you see, for example, you know, I in the United States major opera houses, the next figure is 13 posts at 28,000 people reacted to the content. That was Seattle Opera, and then it goes to Seattle and Chicago that are at 3,000.
But that's a huge difference. Just, you know, a huge difference in engagement versus where that number of posts is. I mean, that makes a phenomenal difference.
It's the thing is, you know, like every post is like an episode, a series, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So you have to film, you have to edit, you have to promote, you have to trailer, you have to script, you have to pay your content creators, hire them. Like it's a massive amount of work.
David, how, aside from the content creators and the people that are in the productions that you're putting together, how many people do you have on staff that are devoted to creating that content for the Dallas Opera? I'm just curious.
So the team of TDO Network, we have, let's say, like TDO Network is part of my portfolio of responsibilities as Director of Artistic Administration. We have a TDO Network manager that is the incredible Annie Penner. And I will fight a lot of people very hard if somebody wants to take her. And I know people in Sinaloa, so don't mess up with me.
She's going to be a hot commodity.
There you go.
Yeah, she's an incredible partner in crime. She's that millennial with a degree on singing that has incredible diplomacy and is tech savvy as hell and loves marketing too. So it's that rare breed that she's there. She is one of the fastest rising stars in the industry. Like, she got promoted twice in 10 months. It's incredible. She's really good. We have two content coordinators that are, let's say, they're the showrunners. So if you're Elsa van der Heeven or Isabel Lerner or whoever is your content creator, Diana Bruick, we assign one of them to kind of run the show. So we are always kind of in contact with them. I have editorial meetings with most of my content creators almost once a week.
Great.
So just to discuss how we're doing. With others, they're very dependent. Like we check in more later, but the staff is of TDO Network exclusively is 3, but then we have satellite people that help us.
Okay.
The IT director is involved to some of the delivery
Of
methods.
course. Yeah.
We outsource and we work with several engineers that help us with our algorithm. But those are engineers that we outsource.
Of course.
Different. It's not a big consultancy. It's actually somebody that we went to not, let's say, not America. To help us. I happens it paid off that I went to a computer science school, right?
I would think so. Yes.
Yeah. So that's one of the things. And then of course we have for certain series or certain projects, our company manager Kaylee Carroll and our incredible director of artistic operations, Caroline Walker. She's also part of certain, let's say, some of the financials of the, we have to have a lot of contracts, a lot of following up. So it's something that is not the norm. As you can see, normally opera companies don't have social media departments that are beef. Normally it's one or two people. They normally are fixed, or they report to development or marketing. So they generally just post for marketing and development campaigns. And it's really hard if 10 out of 10 of your posts are sales pitches. People turn off. But if 9 of those posts are content and then 1 is an ad, you eat it, right?
Right.
So that's what we turn it around. And then not only that, we were so behind in the infrastructure of development, of audience, of talking with, I don't know, last week, and my boy is 5, and my boy normally only uses a cell phone when he has therapy. He has a lung disease, so he has to have a lot of therapy, like gas therapy, nebulizers, and a few therapies. So my boy used the phone last week about 7 hours. That's 7 hours.
Yeah.
But he's in front of a screen, right? I think that I had, something like 20 something.
Right.
So if I am not seeing the Dallas Opera here, the Dallas Opera is not relevant.
Yes.
Right.
So that was the gist that we did with that. We also don't micromanage, as I said, the content. We really empower the people that are doing creators, and unless that they're going to get really, really offensive or something, but I have to say that Ian in 5 months has censored us 1.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it was because it was our very, very, very first episode for TDO Network.
Wow.
And we had a game that it was describe the plot of an opera in 1 minute. And we had a mezzo, and the plot was Rosenkavalier.
Ooh, okay.
So we use the word threesome, and that was not really fun. So
there you go.
And that was it,
And that's how I got kicked off the TDO network.
That was it. So it's really, really also a place where we can be fans. Normally the fan experience of an opera goer happens in very particular places. Whatever restaurant is around. If you're in a stand-up situation, you normally hang out with the people around. You buy some specific sandwiches at a very specific price, and the drinks are really that's the type of experience. The more money you spend, or the more donor you are, you get maybe a lounge or something.
Right.
But we don't take care of the fandom experience when you are not in an opera house. If the only way to be a fan is to be posting comments in Slip Disc and La Checa,
right,
the opera company is never going to know your feedback.
Right.
So you have to create a safe environment and a safe platform where your fans could experience themselves.
Yeah.
So here are the questions.
Critical. Yeah.
So here's the question. Now connect the TDO network to the TDO performances, to the TDO family, to the TDO support financially, how you see it all blending together, because it's great. Or is it something that you want to be separate? It can never be separate. It can stand on its own, but it has to, obviously you're trying to make it complement the company, the ticket sales, money from marketing,
Live
from whatever it is,
performance.
from advertising. But those things need to converge at some point, or at least some of it needs to. So what is how is it fitting together, and how is it going to keep going?
Yeah. Well, let me just ask you, like, if you have a film and you have a studio, where do you go to promote your film?
TV
Live.
commercials.
Yep, TV, of course, TV,
You do
internet,
TV, you go
appearances, all those
Facebook,
kinds of
Instagram.
things.
Yep.
Mhm.
Well, since we don't have late night with anybody,
What?
like, since we don't have, again, Regis and Kelly, right?
Right.
So we had to go even backwards. We had to create television.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Then we had to create those shows. And now we can have guests on those shows
Right.
to promote
Right.
the
Right.
product, right?
Mhm.
So one of the things, and also we needed to create a consistency of traffic.
Right.
So whatever we put in front of them gets consumed, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So now that we have developed a consistency of traffic per month, we're going to try to start to creating innuendo to our pieces, because before, the way that traditionally opera does, you create a poster. If you're lucky, you get one of the singers, right? But
Right.
mostly you get a model. It's a local Photoshop thing.
Yep.
You're promoting the generalistic aspects of that, but there's no personalization of the experience.
Right.
So with this specific channel or this strategy, you actually have now platforms to promote your content to audience that actually is interested in your what you're selling already.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're tailor-made it in the specific show that they are tuning in, so you can create scripts and ways of selling that are particular for that audience. So the way that I sell for the audience of Diana Braywick is very different to the audience that I have myself in my show, or Kristen and Quo, or Emmanuel, right? So that's the way that we can actually tie it up. If I want to promote the Diving Bell, now I have a channel that tunes in 7 million people a month, where I can create a panel like you're reunited a part of, like Josh Gad,
Yep.
and bring all the cast of Diving Bell, and we talk about it, and we're going to have, X amount of people, and then we're going to save the episode, or we're going to dump it later and maybe break it into episodes and create watch parties. Right? And create an underwriting situation for the party, for the project, and for the big one. So it has enhanced the real estate that opera companies have to also create endowment and donorships. Because when I arrived to the opera house, the office of the general director is named. The general director title is given. The music director is given. Right now they're trying to sell my title. We have sold the title of the offices. The Winspear Opera House is the Winspear Opera House for 99 years.
The Winspear Opera House, yeah. Oh, for 99 years, wow.
Everything is sold.
Wow.
But now you can underwrite digital real space.
Fantastic.
Right? So what we have done with TDO Network is give the opera company a better way to engage with the audience. We clearly develop the 18 to 34 audience that only is reachable here. Right? We also are multi-platform. So if you are a person that doesn't want to do Facebook or Instagram, we also dump in YouTube, and we created our own Netflix page that you can go. So at least you have to be able to turn off your Explorer, right? But you can watch videos. There's no excuse.
Yeah.
So we have taken care of a lot of these things, and now we have a structure to develop it further. Now we're into like, how do we make this big? And we can, exactly as you said, how can we start integrating and monetizing it better? So there's a lot of things that I cannot yet disclose, but definitely we're working on several expansion plans, because it's already doing very big. It's fascinating. I have to say, this is one of the most wonderful projects I ever been involved with.
It's fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah, it feels like hats go off to you, David, and you're definitely resonating with our audience. Bernard Holcomb's chiming in to say fantastic and hello. Michael Chioldi says hello. You have some fabulous support coming in from other folks like Evan Brown and from Christina Bachholm, who says, I've tuned into many virtual interviews with David Lomeli, and I have to say they were also informative and encouraging. So I think what you're doing really is resonating. Yes, you, David, but also the TDO network. And it seems to me that this kind of work is pushing the boundaries for what's possible in terms of programming and in terms of diversity. And surely we're going to see that play out on our main stages as well, that they go part and parcel together. So can you talk a little bit about what you see the future of live opera being when we are able to be back in more live performances more consistently, and how this whole new world is going to influence us going forward?
Oof. I have like my version of utopicness, that I would like to see. I think that version would guarantee that all of us here present and tuning in, we have a better arena to develop art and a better way of paying our bills too. I think the industry, and I hope that this pandemic punches all of us in the gut and understand that we need to change several things to survive and to thrive. Number one, we don't invest on the preservation of the art form. The biggest entertainment systems in the world not only are publicizing brands, but they're publicizing the product or the gist, let's say. So if you're the MLB, you promote baseball. If you're the NBA, you promote basketball. You don't promote just the Yankees or the Bulls. You promote basketball, right? Unfortunately, those guys have created revenue systems and funding systems to the NBA directly or the MLB directly, to that they can have independent budgets for marketing and development of the sport. So they can buy and negotiate TV rights and ads and whatever it is on the generality. My ideal world would see where maybe Opera America or maybe another organization takes over some sort of a commissioning of opera. And we unite maybe the level 1s and level 2s first. Or we create, divisions like the Premier League in sports.
Right.
But if we are unified, let's say if we had like the top 9 opera houses and all of us would destine $1 million of our budget to the diversification and proliferation of the art form, if we can buy airwave time, if we can place product placement on real series, if we have opera going in Blackish, if we have opera going in the George Lopez show, we also need to start, creating pipeline and structures. One of the things that I love of Dallas, and people don't talk a lot about Dallas. Normally, people talk about Dallas of the TDO Network or the Heart Institute. The bravest thing that Ian Derer has ever done is that he put a Black and a Mexican as members of his executive team, because now he has 2 minority members that the next step is to become general directors.
Yeah.
And that's when we're going to see it, because the moment that you see Christian Roberts and Quo developing their platform and then Christian taking over education and taking to what she's doing is amazing.
Yeah.
What we have been done on my side, or the Mexican side, with Heart Institute and TDO Network is really powerful too. Because we're used to hustle. And I'm not saying that this is not the generality of every ethnicity, but we haven't heard those stories.
Yep.
And also those ethnicities don't want to be talked only through mariachi operas or Porgy and Bess or police brutality operas. We want to see operas where we fall in love like everybody else, where we betray like everybody else, where we have sex like everybody else. Mexicans not only are guys that go and sing mariachi and immigrate illegally, right? Blacks are not only super poor and having police brutality always imposed on themselves. So that is the ideal. I think that moving forward, an opera company, if it's for reals, have to address three different arenas or three different stages. Is the main stage, the civic impact stage. I don't like to call it outreach because outreach is going out, and civic impact, I think that you have to be relevant in your community, and the only way to be relevant again, here, because first they have to see you, they have to know you, and then they have to talk to you and hopefully invite you in, right? Lastly, you have to have a digital multimedia platform now moving forward, because we have to have structures that if a pandemic, if a war, if a nuclear Armageddon, whatever it is, we still can connect with the audience. But most importantly, all of us as artists, we have a stupid desire to create. So if we don't have a platform, right?
Yep.
And lastly, we have to rethink the way that digital media and compensation and perception of the transference of wealth in the economics of everything in business has to be rethought. So when I hear that people say, well, in Germany it's easier because the government pays for it.
Right.
The citizens are paying for it. They accept the taxes. There's arts tax in there. So we need to go, and just like we're lobbying for everything, we have to lobby for legislation that allows to have empowerment of a right that is to be educated, right? Number two, if we don't do that, then we have to go to market. And that's where we're finding out, how these, you guys have seen it, like your performances sometimes get 2,000 people, but then we go online and we have like 10.
Yeah.
That's our real market value.
Yep.
Right. That's where right now our dad is telling us, like, okay, you can live in the basement, but now get a job.
Yeah.
And we find out that in order to get the $6 that we used to get from that to go to the Starbucks, now we have to work 2 hours.
That's right.
Right. So it's the same thing, it's, or either we get legislation that gives us a cushion all the time. Or we create frames that are so many others, like, we cannot have Article 14. We have to be able to be international as hell, so we can penetrate China, penetrate UK, go to Latin America, fundraise in different aspects. Our audience that is here and is loyal is tired of giving that type of money. So that's what I see for me in the future. If we don't do those things, we're going to keep doing business as usual. We're going to be paying $10,000 a singer. That really translates on the fact that I'm going to pay that amount of money so that person doesn't go to another company. But not because that person gives us $10,000 guaranteed on Income Plus. That's sad. That's dangerous.
Those are hard numbers. Yeah.
The worst thing is, this is something that I did for the San Francisco Conservatory of Innovative Leadership I think like a month and a half ago. And I did a study on media payments. It's not very, very, very concise, right? Like, it's not very accessible, but if you Google and you hustle, you can find it. And I find out that, for example, Beyonce in Pandora, that is one of the ones that are public in what they pay and what is their reach. Beyonce last month got 6.5 million unique users that stream her content at 39 million times that they stream. So since Pandora pays 0.0011 cents per stream, she's going to make around $50,000, where she is going to keep around 7% of that for her.
Isn't that incredible?
Right? Of course, she's going to get payouts from YouTube. She's going to get payouts for Facebook, from Vimeo, from Spotify, from iTunes Music. So possibly she's going to make around at least $1 million a month from all those platforms altogether, right? Gustavo Dudamel, is the music director of the wealthiest orchestra in the planet, and has the Deutsche Grammophon multi-album contract, a very, very powerful publicity firm in Unison Media, and several others. Like, he was heard in Pandora with 26 albums. Beyonce has 10. 26 albums, 3,000 unique users. 6,000 total streams for a total of $9.17 for that in Pandora. So the difference is abysmal, right?
Yeah.
The problem gets worse because normally an AFM or an AGMA house, I'm just going to talk about the orchestra, let's say now. So the orchestra is going to get paid between $100 to $200 to $300 per recording to give certain amount of synchronicity amount, let's say, 10,000 plays. After that, you have to give increments sometimes. Sometimes there's perpetuity out of one exhibition, but it's $200. Let's say $200 on average. And the core of the orchestra of LA Phil, let's say, is probably way higher, almost double, but let's say that it's 50.
Okay.
Sure.
That's $10,000 versus 9.17. And that was 9.17 from 26 albums.
Yeah.
Right.
So when we want to do an album, it's charity.
Yeah.
Yes.
So either we understand, like when I was in the pop band, we only got every promotional thing that we did.
Right.
It was promotional. We didn't get paid.
Right.
The payment was for when we perform and
When you
people
performed on stage.
We got per diem, we got expenses taken care of, but it was not that way. So, and I'm sorry to say, because if the answer is always saying, well, we have to find new donors, but you're not willing to change who has your leadership, just study who is the last bookings of level ones in the opera companies in the past 6 years that we had transitions in LA, in San Francisco, in Santa Fe, in Dallas, Minnesota, Arizona, Opera St. Louis, and Seattle.
That's huge.
But look at the profile of all these people. I love them. A lot of them are great friends. But all of them is, with the exception of Christina Scheppelman in Seattle, it's the same profile.
Yep.
And again, they have incredible wealth of several things that they do. Like, I don't want to criticize their output, no. But there's a certain aspect that when I talk to a Mexican and you talk to a Mexican, I connect a tiny bit better with a Mexican just because of our culture, the passport, all these things. It's just, and we have donor fatigue on the traditional guys.
Yeah.
So if we don't expand, ticket sales, subscribers in our digital platforms, and leadership, if we don't diversify, we're going to be dead in the water.
So, David, I think you're stumbling into something new for a lecture series for maybe TDO. We're getting some interesting responses here. Alex Romano is saying, so how do we create spaces where we can collect and collaborate? Will Opera America take up more of the industry-wide brand development, and how do we start the conversation? Karen Foster is also saying, I'm ready for the David Lomeli lecture series. I mean, I think you're really hitting on something, which is just how to continue to grow the art form. And a lot of people are very, very hungry for that right now. So hat goes off to you for doing that.
Oh, thank you. The thing is, at the end of the day, I also know there's a certain part that I don't talk a lot about it, but I think that we have to be very obvious too. And I think that it was something that we were talking about before, a little bit before camera. What is surprising is that a lot of the majority of people or companies that I've been seeing on the content are still trying to create the big show. They're trying to create a big digital experience that is going to be once a month.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, we're going to have to do some of those with different measures, but we're going to have to do some. But the fact that it still is like day 150 of the pandemic, and I still see opera companies not posting anything in a week.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I want to see an organization that again, I don't know, because I don't, I have to say Opera America has been very, very good for me. Like, they are very kind. I graduated their leadership intensive program. They're an incredible organization. But right now they are a very, very kind of our Wikipedia. We go there for resources.
Right.
But I think that we need now somebody that develops the real business model of the industry. not just one company. Because if we're not relevant as a whole, as a culture.
And you already said it's going to take us bonding together and partnering to make that happen.
The thing is, you know, like that is what it blows my mind. We gather so often as an industry.
Yep.
At the Talkers, at the Monk, at the Opera America Conference and Santa Fe, it takes a dinner of 20. But we have to be willing to let go of the structures of traditional way of doing things.
Yeah.
You know, so, but you know, again, it's something very, very, very telling. I feel that I'm a little more bold today because I'm about to go to another side of the planet in a different industry where I really not a lot of people know me as this part. They know me as singer when I sang in Europe a lot, but so I'm excited for the challenge and a lot of the things. But I have to say that it was fascinating that now that I'm coming to a close of my 15 years in the United States here, see that we're willing to the tokenizing of the minorities to appeal that we kind of are doing something right is not enough anymore. And it's so tight with the business of opera. You know, so I have been the minority candidate in a lot of searches. In a lot of the searches that I mentioned in general director positions, right?
Yep.
And we have to be better.
Yeah.
Just as I don't know how to like patronize or that, but we have to be better. We have to be able to provide a safe arena where you don't get sexually assaulted or discriminated. We have to create media formulas where actually we get paid the real value of your work, but we also are helping the development of the business aspect.
Right.
We need a lot of unity, and I, you know, TDO Network is helping us to do some of that in our forums, but at the same time, we need more people.
We do. We do.
We do. We need more people like you.
Wow.
Well, it's going to take a huge effort across the industry. And if this is one moment of getting a voice out to say that's needed, then we will help champion that and spread the word as much as we can, David. I couldn't agree with you more. So we're a little over time today, and I thank you for being out with us, David. I think what you had to say was extraordinary and so valuable. And obviously, the three of us could continue to talk for hours on end. But thank you so much for being able to join us today. And thank you for all that are watching in real time, and for anybody who's viewing this as it stays up on our YouTube channel and our Facebook pages in the coming months. It's really a treasure to be able to spend this time and share extraordinary guests like David with you. And also to say, David, in that sense of partnership from Opera San Antonio to the Dallas Opera, thank you for being with us.
Appreciate it. And I always have fun, you know, talking besides you guys with incredible friends, you know, so happy to be here.
Likewise. Well, we hope everyone will join us again. Our next Beyond the Production will be in 2 weeks on August 28th, same time, noon Central. Thank you again, David and Francesco, as always, for joining me. And we will see everybody in a few weeks.
Ciao. David. Bye, Lauren. Ciao.